Shalom, shalom, Israel's brother Kabashana with the Watchman for Israel, coming back at you with another cold cut. First and foremost, I want to give a call, Halam, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. That's all praises to the Most High in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. In today's topic, we're going into a history lesson about the Khazarian Empire, man. Right? Because you got fake Jews dwelling over there in the land of Israel that stole your nationality, man. So first things first, we go establish who are the Jews of antiquity? What do they look like? What were some of their characteristics? You can learn about the history of the Jews in the Bible, huh? All right. So first things first, let's pull up this precept. We go get Exodus, right? Second chapter. This is the birth of Moses. Okay. I'm gonna start at verse 5. You know what? I'm actually just start at 1. I'm gonna just get it all. Now it says, here this Exodus 2 and 1, it says, and there went a man of the house of Levi and took to a wife a daughter of Levi, right? And Levi is one of the sons of Israel. So this is an Israelite couple, making marriage. Verse 2, it says, and the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Now, why did she hide him? Right? Because I'm gonna get that. We're gonna show you why she hid the baby. All right. And I'm gonna start at Exodus 1, verse 16. It says, I'm gonna start at 15. It says, and the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwife, of which the name of one was Sapphira, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon their stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him, and if it be a daughter, then she shall live. Right? The same thing Esau do today, man, because they all move in the spirit of the Egyptians. They want to kill off the men and keep the women, man. Right? Because the seed line is based on the father. So they want to kill off the men and leave the women. So that's why she hid the baby. Right? That's why this woman of Levi hid the child. All right, so let's go back to Exodus 2 and 3. It says, and when she could not hide him, when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and dabbed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flax by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. All right. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. Right. So they seen the child, in the flax by the river, the daughter of Pharaoh. Right. Pharaoh, that's an Egyptian. The ancient Egyptians are dark-skinned people, man. Okay. And it says, and when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children, because it was a son of Levi. Okay. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and tell thee, a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee wages, or I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. Right? So Pharaoh's daughter gave the child so the woman could nurse it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, And she said, because I drew him out the water. Right? So pretty much he could hide himself within the house of Pharaoh because he was supposed to be dead if they knew he was a Hebrew baby. But he was able to blend in with the Egyptians as a child because they're both dark skinned people. Okay? That's why she was able to raise him as a son. She couldn't just take a white baby and raise him as the son if it was a distinct difference between the Israelites and the Egyptians. That's just not the case, man. All right. We go further prove that this is a dark skinned man, Moses, we're talking about. We go fast forward, right? We go get Exodus, the 3rd chapter. All right. Salaki. Demons, man. All right, is it in the 4th chapter? Right. Gotta show y'all this, man. We go get to the nitty gritty, see how the ancient Hebrews look, man. All right. This is Exodus 4, verse. Let me get the context here. Right, I'm gonna start at 1 so we get the full context for y'all. All right, it says, and Moses answered and said, but behold, they would not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, the Lord have not appeared unto thee. So you got to give me a sign, basically. So this is Moses talking directly uh, with the Most High through an angel, which is Yahweh Shah. If you got ears to hear, and he letting them know, I need signs so I can show them. They're not gonna believe that you've spoken to me. So I'm gonna skip and show you one of these miracles that the Most High showed Moses that he would show as a sign to the Israelites. Verse 6, it says, and the Lord said furthermore, put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. So he did like this. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. Okay, so if he was already a white person, how is it a miracle if you put your hand in here and it come out and it's the same color? So he put his hand in his bosom, took it out, and it became white. Right? In verse 7, and he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again. So it was a leprous hand. He put it into his bosom again, and he put his hand in his bosom again and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. Right? So it went from leprous to his other flesh again. What's that other flesh? It would have to be a darker skin. Right? All right. There's some more proof on how the ancient Hebrew men looked, man, according to the Bible. All right. This is the history of the Hebrews, the Bible. Now, you'll get the book of Acts, right? Chapter 21, verse 37. It didn't take me there. Okay, great. All right. This is Acts 21 and 37. It says, and as Paul was led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee? Who said, canst thou speak Greek? And so the chief captain asked him, can he speak Greek? Art thou that Egyptian? So the chief captain mistook Paul as an Egyptian. So how can Paul be a so-called white man if he was mistaken as an African? He said, art thou that Egyptian, which before these days made us an uproar and led us out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers? And Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tyrus, a city in Sicily, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. So Paul answered, said, I'm a Jew, but he thought he was an Egyptian. So the Jews would look similar to the Egyptians, which are dark-skinned people, man. All right? So you just can't get around that, man. Right? Now, who the world called Jesus Christ, Yahweh Shah, he was a Jew. Right? We can prove he was a Jew. Because, hey, Jew is just short for Judah, man. Right? It's really the southern kingdom of Israel, man. Matter of fact, let's bring that out real fast. Because people don't even know what a Jew is. A Jew is just Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Those tribes are Israel, Ezra, Salakia. Get the book of Ezra, chapter 1. And I don't want to make it too long. I kind of want to get straight to the point. All right. All right, Ezra 1 and 2, it says, Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord God of heaven, hath given me all kingdoms of the earth, and he hath charged me to build him an house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. All right, let's skip down to verse 5. Then rose up the chief fathers of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, with all them whose spirit God had raised to go build the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem. So Cyrus commanded those who was left from the Babylonian siege to go build up the tower. To go build up Jerusalem, build up the house for the Lord. Right, that's what Cyrus made a decree, and you can see that in the Cyrus cylinder that they got that in the archaeological findings as well. All right, that he let people go back to their homelands. Now go to skip. Gotta find it real quick. I don't know the exact precept, but can find it quicker on here to show you that they was later on called Jews. All right, it's in Ezra 4, and where I want to start. Um, I don't know, is that what I? Yeah, I like that one better. The one in 6. They get Ezra 6, right? This is going into King Darius, you know, the Persians. He he basically had to backtrack to figure out what Cyrus had said that he made that decree, so he couldn't mess with the Jews. There you go. Show that the Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were referred to as Jews. That's where you get the whole Jew or Gentile kind. That's another story. All right, Salaki. So I did not mean to do whatever that was. So you got Ezra 6 and 8, right? It says, Moreover, I make a decree what ye shall do to the elders of these Jews for building of this house of God. So the Jews was building for the house of God. Matter of fact, start at 7. It says, Let the work of this house of God alone, let the governor of the Jews and the elder of the Jews build this house of God in this place. Right? Because the northern kingdom, it was finished. Right, when you read 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, they already was finished. They went to the Syrian captivity, and roughly like 731 BC, it was done. Right, this is 500 BC right here. What I want to say, like 530 something BC. It's a lot, yeah. I can't think of it right now, but yeah. So this is 200 years after the northern kingdom was gone. So Judah, Benjamin, and Levi are considered Jews in the first place. Right. So back to the fact of the matter, Christ was a Jew because he came from the tribe of Judah. Right. So we go prove he was a Jew, then we go see how he looked to get more descriptive with the Jews of antiquity. All right, now this is Hebrews 7 and 14. It says, For it is evident that our Lord sprang out of Judah, of which tribe Moses spake nothing concerning priesthood. All right, point blank, period. Their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Mashiach Yahushua, our Lord and Savior. Okay, let's see what this man looked like. Okay, it's the book of Revelation 1 and 1. It says, The revelation of Jesus Christ, Hamashiach Yahweh, which Yahweh gave unto him to show him unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass, and he signified it by his angel unto his servant John, who bear record of God and the testimony of Yahweh Hamashiach of all things that he saw. So he wrote everything he saw. Skip down to verse 12, and as you see, he's talking to Christ, red letter. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks, and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the pass with a golden girdle. And brothers should know this off heart, man. You don't know what Christ looked like. That's shame on you, man. That's for brothers in the truth, you know. Verse 14, it says, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. So he had white, woolly hair, the so-called black man. And his feet like unto fine brass, as if they had burnt in the furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. So Christ was a dark-skinned man with an afro, man. Right? His feet looked like fine brass, a penny, as if it was burnt in the furnace. He's a dark-skinned man, and he was a Jew. So how the hell can these fake, like, who are, you know, who are those damn white men in Israel today, man? That's what this breakdown is going to get in depth with. All right, I just want to get one more precept. This is Ezekiel 8:3. It says, and he put forth the form of an hand, and took me by a lock of mine head. So Ezekiel had locks, man. Right, so Ezekiel had locks, man. All right, how we go get some actual pictures, some actual artifacts on the Egyptian wall portraying these Hebrews. Right, so this is Hebrews working as slaves. You see that? Those are Hebrews working as slaves. This is a depiction of Moses splitting the sea. That's God's hands. This is Moses and Aaron. This is the Egyptians. This is the Hebrews. Okay? All right, it's all on the walls of Egypt, man. Check that out. The Hebrews making bricks, man. Like it tell you in Exodus 1. Right? Like it tell you in Judah 5:11, man. We were slaves in Egypt. All right? And that's pictures of it right there. Right? Some more Hebrews. Look at the brother beard. Look at the hair. Look at the skin complexion. All right, there's one. Yeah, this I wanted to get this one. Check that out. So this is the one of the Egyptians, you know, half naked because they homosexuals, right? Grabbing the locks of these brothers' hair, man. So they had the Israelites in slavery, man. Right, straight up and down, man. I want to get this out of the book, the Black Image and the White Mind by George M. Fredrickson. This is a white, what they call activist, right? So-called activist, man. Right. This is page 74. It says, in the 1840s, Morton collaborated with George R. Gilden, an Egyptologist, who provided him with mummy heads and information about the racial significance of Egyptian tomb inscriptions and Crania Egyptoptica, published in 1844. And Morton pointed out that both cranial and archaeological evidence show that the Egyptians were not Negroes, as abolitionists and colonists had maintained. So that's for you damn fools who think we Egyptian. So based on the cranial and archaeological findings, they said the Egyptians were not Negroes. They tell you that in the Zondervan Bible Compact Dictionary, that we differ from Ham. You read about that when you read Genesis 10. You see the Isles of the Nations, you know, they bloodline. It says, in fact, blacks have been relegated to the same servile position in ancient Egypt as in modern America. So they said, in fact, you know, based on the archaeological and cranial findings, blacks was regulated in the same servile position in Egypt as they was in America, right? And this is us in Egypt, man, in the same servile position. Okay? So you just can't get around it, man. Right? So if these are the Jews, who the hell is this? Who the hell are these people, man? If these are the Jews, Slocky, if so-called black men are the Jews, then who the hell, who, right? Don't want to load. That's Satan trying to stop the word, man. Right, so who are these people, man? Who was this guy, man? Right, was he in Egypt, man? Did Moses part the sea for this man when they just turn white, man? Don't even make sense. Hey, and they mock you with their name, because their name They call themselves Jewish. Now, if I say you're childish, that means you're acting like a child. Because ish just means like that suffix just means like pertaining to or like. Like if I say that shirt is bluish, it's not quite blue. So they not quite Jews. Just like you childish, you acting like a child. You're not a Jew. You acting like a Jew. You're Jewish. Right? I'm gonna get out the Merriam-Webster's dictionary and thesaurus. All right. Let me get this. I'm gonna get two definitions: the definition of Israeli and the definition of Israelite. Because hey, they call themselves Israelis, man. Right? We not Israelis, we Israelites. They are Israeli, by definition. Right? What you're gonna find out is any nationality can be Israeli. But Israelite is literally a lineage, it's a bloodline. So everybody can't be an Israelite. So it's subtle things that they put just in their own literature that kind of expose them, right? So this is the definition of Israeli. It says a native or an inhabitant of Israel. So if you're born, if you're an inhabitant in Israel, then you're Israeli. It's like a citizenship, like we're American based on where we live, but that's not our nationality. Then the definition of Israelite is a member of the Hebrew people descended from Jacob. And to be descended means you got to come from that bloodline. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those are the Israelites. So we're Israelites. They stole our land. That's why they're Israeli, because they are an inhabitant of that land, man. Right? So that's one thing, man. And then what people gotta understand is, hey, the nations always cleave to Israel, man. They've always done it. It's not the first time that people will want to take on our customs. So that's not far fetched for the nations to do. And that's in the Bible, which is the history of the Jews. We'll bring it up. All right, this is the book of this is Esther, right? Chapter 8, verse 17, where it says, and in every province and in every city, whitherso the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. So how did they become Jews? Right, by doing the works of the Jews, the same way the Jews became Gentiles. Right, when you read, you got Ephesians 2 and 11, you got a 2 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, then you can jump over to the 12th chapter. Literally, we became Gentiles in the flesh by being carried to dumb idols, man. So they wanted to follow suit with the Jews, right? So the nations would cleave, man, right? You got that in Ruth, right? The book of Ruth, what's that? Chapter 1, verse 16, where it says, and Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee or to return following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. Right? And if you skip to the last verse, it says, and Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab and came to Bethlehem in the beginning of the barley harvest. Right? So Ruth was a Moabitess, but she was cleaving onto the Israelites. She said, your people gonna be my people, your God gonna be my God. Right? So the nations would cleave, but let's see how Israel responded to that, Let's see how Israel responded to the nations trying to cleave. You got Ezra's 4 and 2. It says, then they came to Zubarel and to the chief of the fathers and said unto him, let us build with you, for we seek your God as ye do, and we sacrifice unto him since the days of Ezra-Handa, the king of Assur, which brought us up hither. But Zubarel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said unto him, ye have nothing to do with us to build an house unto our God, but we ourselves together will build unto the Lord God of Israel, as King Cyrus the king of Persia have commanded us. So they say, we ain't got nothing to do with you, get out our face, man. It ain't for you, man. Right, so the nations try to cleave, but we wasn't dealing with them, man. The nations would always try to cleave unto us, man. It's not nothing new. Right, one more precept on that. Right, the nations trying to cleave, man, because you'll understand that's what happened in this sense, man. You'll understand where these people came from, man. Okay, we go get some clear understanding on it, man. All right, oh yeah, Zechariah, Zechariah 8:23 through the Spirit. All right. All praises to Yahweh. All right, so this is Zechariah 8:23. It says, "Thus said Yahweh, the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, even shall take hold on the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, We will go with you, for we have heard that your God is with you." So even in the last day, they go cleave on us. Right? I want to say that in Isaiah 14:1, they go cleave to the house of Jacob. So they go cleave unto him that is a Jew, man. And say, we heard that God is with you. So a lot of people go do that, and they was doing that back then because there's nothing new under the sun. All right. Now, we'll get into this book written by Arthur Koestler, right? The 13th tribe, right? Before we even get into it, I want to make one point. This book, it's copywritten, came out in 1976, right? Now we finna look up this guy right here, okay? Look up this man. We finna see what's going on, right? So this book came out in 1976. Now, it said, how did he die, right? Suicide. He died March 1st, 1983. That's less than 10 years after the book came out. He committed suicide. Hey, man, they killed that man because this book right here is deep, man. It's real deep. It cuts deep into the so-called white man, their lies and folly. And hey, check it out. He's a so-called white man, right? You know that? So they killed that man, right? Let me get a quick precept because they murdered the man, and we know what's going on, man. We weren't falling for that, man. We know they murdered the man. He didn't commit suicide. 2 Corinthians 2:11, it says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." And that's the device of the so-called white man. They put their own people to death to cover things up, man. They did it with Kennedy and just multiple occasions, man. We all know what's going on. So we finna get into this 13th tribe. All right. We go start off with basic information here. Well, first, before we get there, I want to show you what we're dealing with. Show you like where we're dealing with. All right. So we get a good look. I want a better map. I want a better map than that, man. And I guess that map was cool. Right, so this was the Khazarian Empire. That's where it was. And if you know anything, the Caucasus Mountains is right here in this area, the Caucasus Mountains. So it was right here, right above Turkey, right next to Europe, which was the Holy Roman Empire at the time. So-called blacks was in rulership. You had certain Edomites here and there, but this is mainly the Dark Ages. When we had full rulership, the Byzantine Empire. Then you had the Moors, the goddamn Arabs, man. Ishmaelites was taking over stuff as well. They had conquered the Levant and all kind of things, man. So that's the time period we working with. Crusade period. 700s, man, the 8th century. That's what we're going with. So this is page 15 of this book. It says, a few years later, probably 740 AD, the king, his court, and the military ruling class embraced the Jewish faith, and Judaism became the state religion of the Khazars. Right, so in 740 AD, the Khazars converted into the Jewish faith. All right. No doubt their contemporaries were astonished by this decision, as modern scholars were when they came across the evidence in the Arab, Byzantine, Russian, and Hebrew sources. So there's 4 different sources that they was getting from all these different, empires that was ruling during these times. Right? It says Hungarian matrix historian Dr. Bertha, his book on the Magyar society in the 8th and 9th centuries, yet this conversation of Judaism is discussed in a single paragraph with obvious embarrassment. And it reads, our investigations, right, and this is from a Hungarian historian, says our investigations go into problems pertaining to the history of ideas, but we must call the reader's attention to the matter that the Khazar kingdom state religion. It was the Jewish faith which became the official religion of the ruling strata of society. Needless to say, the acceptance of the Jewish faith as the state religion of an ethnically non-Jewish people could be subject of interesting speculation. So this is a non-Jewish people taking on the Jewish faith, which belongs to, it's actually a heritage, it's to the bloodline, right? The Most High not dealing with nobody else. You read that in Psalms 147 and 19, Amos 3 and 1, right? He gave the word to Israel. It's the culture of the Israelites. When you read Ecclesiasticus 24:23, Ecclesiasticus 17 and 11, right? So he didn't give the heritage to nobody else. So this would be interesting speculations to the people of the time, and even modern scholars, like you say. All right. It says, what is in dispute is the faith of the Jewish Khazars after the destruction of their empire in the 12th or 13th century. On this problem, the sources are scant, but various late medieval Khazar settlements are mentioned in the Crimea, in the Ukraine, in Hungary, Poland, and Lithuania. Right? The general picture that emerges from these fragmentary pieces of information is that of a migration of Khazar tribes and communities into those regions of Eastern Europe, mainly Russia and Poland, where at the dawn of the modern age, the greatest concentration of Jews were found. So you got the Ukraine, Poland, Lithuania, Hungary. This is where the greatest concentration of Jews were found. Right? I got this map pulled up from the Jewish population, in 1933, right around the time of Hitler, right? And look where the most Jews at, right here in Poland, man. Right? You got Lithuania, Hungary. All the Jews were mainly in these areas. This is, Germany. That's where Austria. This is where Adolf Hitler, man, just started going in, right? Subjugating these false Jews, man. So it's ironic that sources show settlements popping up of the land here, and the Khazar Empire is over this way. You know what I'm saying? So they clearly migrated into here. All right, Salakia. So that's the greatest concentration, those areas, right? Ironically. Right, so reading on in this, it says, this has led several historians to conjure that a substantial part and perhaps majority of Eastern Jews, and hence world of Jewry, might be of Khazar and not Semitic origin. The far-reaching implications of this hypothesis may explain the great caution exercised by historians in approaching this subject if they do not avoid it altogether. And this brother did not, or Slakia, this man here did not, avoid it. And he got put to death, man, by his own people. And that's why, because they wanted to hide that, man. So historians wasn't touching on it, man. But he touched on it, man. Right? He's citing sources, man. It says, thus, in the 1973 edition of the Encyclopedia Judaica, the article Khazars is signed by Dunlop, and there is a separate section dealing with Khazar Jews after the fall of the kingdom, signed by the editors and written with the obvious intent to avoid upsetting believers in the dogma of the chosen race. He called it dogma, man. Hey, this man called it dogma that they believed it was the chosen race, man. Because it is, man. All right. And this is an excerpt from it. It says the Turkish-speaking Khazarites, a fundamentalist Jewish sect of the Crimea, Poland, and elsewhere, have affirmed a connection with the Khazars, which is perhaps confirmed by evidence from folklore and anthropology as well as language. So the folklore, the anthropology, which is the study of like a people, like the study of they like ways, the way a community is. Like it's the study of a people pretty much. And their language can show that those people was Khazars. There seems to be a considerable amount of evidence attesting to the continued presence in Europe of descendants of the Khazars. Right? So jump to page 17. It says this was written before the full extent of the Holocaust was known, but that does not alter the fact that the large majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European and thus perhaps mainly Khazar origin. If so, this would mean that their ancestors came not from the Jordan, but from the Volga, not from Canaan, but from the Caucasus, once believed to be the cradle of the Aryan race, man. So he letting you know straight up, man. They finished, man. And that genetically they are more closely related to the Hun, Uyghur, and Magyar tribes than to those of the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? Which is off because that's going into the Japhites. But you know, Japhet ruled Europe thousands of years before the so-called white man came with his folly, then Macedon, Alexander the Greek, and you know the rest is history. It says the story of the Khazar Empire as it slowly emerges from the past begins to look like the most cruel hoax which history has ever perpetuated. Check that out, man. Right, so this man is he going in, man. He citing his sources, he did his research, he going in, showing you what happened. So in 740 AD, the Khazars converted into the religion, man. And once they fell, a lot of them went into Eastern Europe, and a lot of history shows that they come from there. And like I said, they would come from the Caucasus, man. The Caucasus Mountains, man. All right? That's where you get the name Caucasian from, right? And we know who come from the caves, man. We about to bring it up, all right? I'm going to get that in Job, right? Salakia. All right, Salakia. So we're going to go ahead and get that. Go to Job. Get Job 24, verse 3. All right. It's the book of Job, chapter 24, not verse 3. Salakia. It's later on in there. Verse 8. It says, they are wet with showers of the mountains and embrace the rock for want of shelter, man. Talking about Esau, so they embrace the rock for want of shelter, man. All right. It's a so-called white man, man. All right. So the Edomite, that's where they come from, man. Khazars, Amalek. All right. This is Obadiah 1, verse 3. It says, the pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground. Right. And this whole chapter is, talking about Esau, man. So Esau, the so-called white man, right? He getting exposed through the spirit, man. Right, so we go skip over to page 58, right? Chapter 2, going into the conversion. Right, so we go see, why they converted into this religion in the first place and how they was able to. Like, they just couldn't think of that on their own. So we go get the facts and the history once more. Right? So it says the religion of the Hebrews, writes Berry, had exercised a profound influence on the creed of Islam, and it had been a basis for Christianity. Right, like we always bring out, it all comes from Israel, man. Right, Israel is the former of all things. They get all our stuff from the Bible. And we brought out plenty of times how Muhammad just hung around the Jews and stole a lot of their ways. Like Ramadan is really the Day of Atonement. He got a Sabbath day. They pray 5 times facing Mecca. We pray 3 times facing Jerusalem. And in Christianity, they got a watered down, coon, bugged out doctrine using the Bible. It had one scattered proselytes, but the conversion of the Khazars to the undiluted religion of Yahweh is unique in history, right? So another historian bringing out how that's unique that they just transferred to that religion, right? This is really the heritage of the Israelites. Now, page 59 says to quote Barry once more, right? A direct insert right here. There can be no question that the ruler was accused by political motives in adopting Judaism to embrace Muhammad, because this is during the time of the Crusades, right? Just so you know what's going on, because that was 740 AD, the time of the Crusades. So you got the Muslims going hard, and you got the Byzantine Empire, those so-called blacks, being bugged out of their mind in the Christianity, man. All right. And Christianity wasn't as bad as it is now. It wasn't like a coned out doctrine, but it still was going off, man. All right. Now, it says to embrace Mohammedanism would have made him the spiritual dependent of the caliphs, right, which was the ruler of the Muslims at the time. That's what they called them, who attempted to press their faith on the Khazars. Because they attempted to, like I said, they attempted to push that faith onto the Khazars already. And in Christianity lay the danger of becoming an ecclesiastical vessel of the Roman Empire. Judaism was a reputable religion with scarce books, which both Christian and Mohammedan respected. It elevated him above the heathen barbarians and secured him against the interference of caliph or emperor. But he did not adopt, along with circumcision, the intolerance of the Jewish court. He allowed the mass of his people to abide in their heathendom and worship their idols. So unlike how Israel would do, you would get put to death on the spot, as saith the law, for worshiping other gods. He just let them do their thing. He just wanted to take that religion as a political move, because it's respected by these two powers. We are rising power. All right, I don't want to submit to their religion, because then I'm going to have to submit to them. I don't want to submit to their religion. I'm going to have to submit to them. So I'm going to just rule out Christianity and Islam, and I'm going to adopt that Hebrew faith. That Hebrew faith that's going around. Then it's going to explain how he even knew about it in the first place, which everybody knew and respected it. Let's go show what he knew about it. Because they were just barbarians, man. Living wild. It was in the mountains. Right. Then it says, though the Khazar court's conversation was no doubt politically motivated, it would still be absurd to imagine that they embraced overnight blindly a religion whose tenets were unknown to them. In fact, however, they had been well acquainted with Jews and their religious observations for at least a century before the conversion. Through the continued influx of refugees from religious persecution in Byzantium, and to a lesser extent from the countries in Asia Minor acquired by the Arabs, right? Because they had the countries of Asia Minor at the time. Like I said, they had all the Levant. The Arabs was going crazy, man, at the time. Byzantine was going off. They persecuting the Hebrew. They persecuting the Jews, man. All right. We know that Khazarian was a relatively civilized country among the barbarians of the north, yet not committed to either of the militant creeds, so it became a natural haven for the periodic exodus of Jews under Byzantine rule, threatened by forced conversion and other pressures. All right, so the Jews would flee there basically because they was getting persecuted. So they was fleeing to the damn Khazars, man. All right, and they took them with welcoming arms, and slowly but surely they learned their customs and just ended up taking it. I get some more history on that. Page 63. It says the circumstances of this conversion are obscured by legend, but the principal Arab and Hebrew accounts of it have some basic features in common. All Masudis account of the Jewish rule in Khazaria quoted early on ends with a reference to a previous work of his in which he gave a description of those circumstances. That previous work of Masadi's is lost, but there exist two accounts which are based on the lost book. The first, by Damaski, written in 1327, reiterates that at the time of Harun al-Rashid, the Byzantine Empire forced the Jews to immigrate. These immigrants came to the Khazar country where they found an intelligent but uneducated race to whom they offered their religion. The natives found it better than their own and accepted it. Right, so the Jews, man, it's kind of like we always bring out. Should even a conscious community bring it out? How we taught the so-called white people how to bathe and clean and cook and live, man. That's what that's going into. We basically was teaching them how to live, and they took that, ran with it, man. We taught them how to live, man. Right? Not sure how hands-on it was, because our enemy is always going to be found liars. You can't always base it 100% on history. We're going into this history with historians saying and proving emphatically those are not the real Jews, man. The Khazarians, which goes back to Esau, the Edomites, right? Because they could have easily been in that area because Esau was dealing with Hamites, Hittites, and all these other nations. And it was all throughout the Middle East, man. So they had ties to be able to migrate around, man. All right. So although the land of Edom was right there next to Israel, that don't mean that it wasn't Edomites scattered all throughout because it was dealing with other nations. All right. All right, so I'm about to go and see. That was the Arab source we just read about. All right, now we're going to read about the Jewish source. Right, this page 64 says, we now turn from the principal Arab source of this conversion, Musadi and his compilers, to the principal Jewish source. This is the so-called Khazarian correspondence, an exchange of letters in Hebrew between Hasdiya Aban Shaprut, the Jewish chief minister of the Caliph of Cordoba, and Joseph, king of the Khazars, or rather between their respective scribes. He called himself Joseph. What's going on? All right, the exchange of letters apparently took place after 954 AD and before 691 AD. All right, so this ain't that old, bro. This ain't ancient, man. All right. So this just happened. You see, they just converted in 740 AD, man. All right. That is roughly at the time when Masadi wrote, right? This the Arab source. To appreciate its significance, a word must be said about the personality of Asad ibn Shabrat, perhaps the most brilliant figure in the Golden Age, that's from 900 to 1200 AD, of the Jews in Spain. And it was Jews in Spain. I always bring that out when I'm teaching because there's a lot of Moors in Detroit, man. We WFI Detroit. It's a lot of Moors in Detroit, man. So I always got to bring out the history on how Jews was in Spain. They was getting persecuted and just teamed up with the Arabs. Some Hamites, and that's where the Moors come from. So at the end of the day, that's not your nationality, man. It was just Jews in Spain, man. All right, Moreno, black, simple, man. All right, we'll skip down here. Show some about Hassad. It says Hassadi, born 910 in Cordoba into a distinguished Jewish family, first attracted the Caliph's attention as a medical practitioner with some remarkable cures to his credit. Right, skip down here. It says he obviously was an enlightened yet a devoted Jew who used his diplomatic contracts to gather information about the Jewish community dispersed in the various parts of the world and to intervene on their behalf whenever possible, because the Jews was scattered, man. Right, this is after 70 AD. We had got scattered out of our own land, right? And that's where that's why he said he was looking for the Jews that was scattered, right? Which ultimately is a curse out the Bible, right? We gonna bring it out, man. Cause hey, man, the Most High, you gotta bring the Most High word out, man. Deuteronomy 28:64. It says, and Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even to the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So at this time we was out the land. This is down the 900s. Hey man, we was finished. We ain't been in the land almost damn 1,000 years at that point. Like 900 years we wasn't in our own land. So we was scattered, very few left in number. And this man was a Jew trying to, find Jews, man, through his resources. His people, man. And it says, according to his own account, Hasdiah first heard of the existence of an independent Jewish kingdom from some merchant traders in Khurasan in Persia, but he doubted the truth of their story. Later, he questioned the members of a visiting diplomatic mission to Cordoba, and they confirmed the mercenaries' account, contributing a considerable amount of factual detail about the Khazar kingdom, including the name Joseph of its present king. Thereupon, Hasadi decided to send courtiers with the letter to King Joseph. Right, so he's like, damn, these merchants just told me it's an independent Jewish state somewhere. Talking about the Khazar kingdom. So he had to, he ain't believe him, so he re-inquired about it. And they broke it down to him. Told him, man, that's true. It's the Khazars. So he said, I'm gonna write a letter, man. See what's going on. The letter, which will be discussed more in detail later on, contains a list of questions about the Khazar state, its people, method of government, armed forces, and so on, including an inquiry of which of the 12 tribes Joseph belonged. This seems to indicate that Hasadi thought the Jewish Khazars to hail from Palestine, as the Spanish Jews did, perhaps even to represent one of the lost tribes. Right, because the Spanish Jews, they was some of the lost tribes. Man. Damn it, but these people, he like, hey, what tribe y'all from? How y'all run y'all government? Inquiring questions because he know his heritage. He know how it should go. So he asking them certain questions. Y'all, what tribe y'all from? I know it's a lost tribe. You know what I'm saying? So that's what the man did, Hasadi. All right. And he got that Arab name because he was dwelling with the Arabs, man. We dwell among all nations. That's why I said all nations, tongues, and kindreds. When we get delivered, man. Because it's people in damn China. I'm sure they got a Chinese. Not even. I know they got a damn Chinese name, man. They was born there, right? They speak Japanese. They speak these different languages. So that's why that's his name. He's not an Arab. This is an Israelite, all right? Joseph, not being of Jewish descent, right? Because Khazars ain't not of Jewish descent, like they've been brought out. Belonged, of course, to none of the tribes. In his reply to Hasadi, he provides, as we shall see, a genealogical of a different kind, but his main concern is to give Hasadi a detailed, if legendary, account of the conversion which took place 2 centuries earlier and the circumstances that led to it. Because this is, like I said, roughly, what was it, basically in between 940 to 960 AD, and they converted in 740 AD. So he mainly wanted to give an account of how they converted. And he said it had to be something probably legendary. It probably wasn't even a real story. Right? And this is just part of what he said. Joseph, write that down, double, that he said Joseph's narrative starts with the eulogy of his ancestor King Bulan, a great conqueror and a wise man who drove out the sorcerers and idolaters from his land. Subsequently, an angel appeared to King Bulan in his dreams, exhorting him to worship the only true God and promising that in exchange he would bless thee and multiply Bulan's offspring and deliver his enemies into his hand and make his kingdom last to the end of the world. This, of course, is inspired by the story of the covenant in Genesis, in that it implicates that the Khazars too claim the status of a chosen race who made their own covenant with the Lord, even though they were not a descendant from Abraham's seed. So wait a minute. So they just unilaterally just said, we got our own covenant with the Lord. He got a vision. Well, hold on, man. Who the covenants pertain to, man? Right? Romans 9:4. They say the covenants pertain to Israel, man. Right, so you can't just unilaterally just damn change what the Lord said, man. Hey, the covenant not for do we say the covenant with Amalek, man? Hey man, the Lord ain't just go randomly change his covenant. Hey, the Lord don't change Malachi 3:6. Right? Jeremiah 31:31, it says, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. So all the covenants he made is with the Israelites, man. How did they just squeeze themselves into that? Man, that's going the hell off. But what you expect from a double, all right? Get some more and get some more, man. So that's going into the conversion into the Arab and the accounts of the from the Slack from the Hebrews, man. All right, so now we go into more evidence about that Exodus, the Exodus of them like leaving their land. Like I said, they was going to Poland, the Crimea, the Ukraine. He goes more in depth in detail explaining the way the Khazars was in these lands and how today you can notice that these are clearly the Jews. And this is why they killed that man. All right, so this is in the chapter 5, the Exodus, page 141. It says the Khazars, after the defeat by the Russians in 965, lost their empire but retained their independence within narrow frontiers in their Judaic faith well into the 13th century. They even seem to have reverted to some extent to their erstwhile predatory habits. Baran comments, right? And erstwhile just being your past, right? Because they, because they predatory habits. They was in the caves, man, grunting and just being base men, like they tell you in Job 30. It says, in general, the reduced Khazar Empire preserved. It waged a more or less effective defense against all foes until the middle of the 13th century, when it fell victim to the great Mongol invasion set in motion by Genghis Khan. Even then, it resisted stubbornly under the surrender of all its neighbors. Its population was largely absorbed by the Golden Horde, which had established the center of its empire in the Khazar territory. But before and after the Mongol upheaval, the Khazars sent many offshoots into the unsubdued Slavic lands, helping ultimately to build up the great Jewish centers of Eastern Europe. So check that out. That's from Byron. See, he just always quoting sources. So although the Mongols was, and other people took over their land pretty much due to the Golden Horde, they conquered most of that land over there where they was originally. They had already been sending people to, Eastern Europe. They already had people, building up in Eastern Europe because the Mongols was during the 1200s, man. All right. So it says here then we have the cradle of the numerically strongest and cultural dominant part of modern Jewry. Right, it says here, it says, but at the same time, this page 142, it says, but at the same time, there is inclusive religion foster a tendency to keep to themselves and stick together to establish their own communities with their own places of worship, schools, residential quarters, and ghettos, originally self-imposed, and wherever town or country they settled. This rare combination of wanderlust and ghetto mentality, reinforced by messianic hopes and chosen race pride, both ancient Israelites and medieval Khazars shared, even though the latter trace their descendants not to Shem but to Japheth, which we understand is not Japheth, they Edomites, all right? Because Esau came out red, man. Japheth was conquered by the Edomites, all right? Japheth had that land originally, man. You can look it up when you look at the Etruscans. They were dark-skinned people. Zeus is actually a black god. When you actually look at the ancient pictures, he got woolly hair. Right? A lot of them Greek gods are actually dark-skinned people, man. And they just took the customs of their people. And you know that they did that with the Greeks. The Greeks would conquer Egypt, and they pharaohs. They just took on what they don't have their own heritage. Proven with the Khazars right now. They just took the heritage of them Israelites, man. Right, so we're finna read about certain evidence in different places. This is going into, the evidence of them being in Hungary. It says this development is well illustrated by what one might call the Khazar diaspora in Hungary. We remember that long before the destruction of their state, several Khazar tribes known as the Khazars, joined the Magyars and migrated to Hungary. Moreover, in the 10th century, the Hungarian Duke Tassuni invaded a second wave of Khazar immigrants to settle in his domain. 2 centuries later, John Cinemas, the Byzantine chronicler, mentions troops observing the Jewish laws fighting with an Hungarian army in Dalmatia 111 54 AD, man. So this is an account from a whole nother nation. He said his people observing a Jewish faith fighting with the Hungarian army. Then it says there may have been a small numbers of real Jews living in Hungary from Roman days, but there can be little doubt that the majority of this important portion of modern Jewry originated from the migratory waves of Khazars, who play such a dominant part in early Hungarian history. So they're saying I could have been real Jews, a small number, but we can actually just chalk it up and just use common sense and see that it must have been the Khazars who was fighting with them, observing the laws, because they had a great impact on Hungarian history. So that's why you can't just say, hey, that could have been a real Jew. No, this was the Khazars, man. All right. It says not only was the country, as Constantine tells us, bilingual at its beginning, but it was also had form of double kingship, a variation of the Khazar system, the king sharing power with his general in command who bore the title Jula or Guy, still a popular Hungarian first name. Check that out. So Hungary had a double kingship just like the Khazar system had. So you just can't get around it, man. All right. Now we go into the Jews in Poland. Because if you check it out, all right, so check that out. That's where most of Jews come from, Poland. In Poland, he got way more chapters on it, man. Because it's a lot of evidence of them being in Poland, man. And that's why it's the most populated. So you really just can't get around what it is. Like if you look at this map, which I just noticed, it show all the sections they in. Look at how many is in Eastern Europe anyway, which they say where most of them migrated to, Lithuania and all these other places, man. All right. So this page 147, it says around 962, several Slavic tribes formed an alliance under the leadership of the strongest among them, the Polans, which became the nucleus of the Polish state. Thus, the Polish rise to eminence started about the same time as the Khazar decline. Sarkil was destroyed in 965. So the Polish state was on the rise as the Khazars declined. So that's one evidence to show that they migrated to over there, man. It is significant that Jews played an important role in one of the earliest Polish legends relating to the foundation of the Polish kingdom. We are told that when the Allied tribes decided to elect a king to rule them all, they chose a Jew named Abraham Prokonik. Rather, Abraham, I'm just calling him Prosho, man. Whether Abraham Prosho existed or not, there are plenty of indications that the Jewish immigrants of Khazaria were welcomed as a valuable asset to the country's economy and government administration. Since the Poles under the Pius dynasty and their Baltic neighbors, the Lithuanians, right, so this is going into Poland and Lithuania, had rapidly expanded their frontiers and were in dire need of immigrants to colonize their territories and to create an urban civilization. So they wanted immigrants so they can increase their territory, man. All right. They encouraged first the immigration of German peasants, Bulgars, and craftsmen, and later the migrants from the territories occupied by the Golden Horde, including Armenians, Southern Slavs, and Khazars. Not all of these migrations were voluntary. They included large numbers of prisoners of war, such as Crimean Tatars, who were put to cultivate the estate of Lithuanian and Polish landlords in the conquered southern provinces. Right, so all these, everybody that migrated, it wasn't voluntary. It took some prisoners of war. Right, and one out of those, some of them was Khazars, and so we'll bring that up. It says among the populations that thus forcefully transferred was a strong contingent of Khazars, a fundamentalist Jewish sect which rejected rabbinical learning. According to a tradition which has survived among Khazarites into modern times, their ancestors were brought to Poland by the great Lithuanian ruler, warrior prince Valto at the end of the 14th century as prisoners of war from Sahak in Crimea. In favor of this tradition speaks the fact that Valto in 1388 granted a charter of rights to the Jews of Turkey, and the French traveler de Lania found there a great number of Jews speaking a different language from the Germans and natives. All right, that's just more proof, man, because they were speaking these German languages. That language was and still is a Turkish dialect. In fact, the nearest among living languages to the lingua Germanica, which has spoken in the former Khazar territories at the time of the Golden Horde. Right, skip to page 149. It says the Khazars also claimed that before the Great Plague of 1710, they had some 32 or 37 communities in Poland and Lithuania. Right, skip to this paragraph. It says, according to Jackowski, the imminent contemporary Turkologist considers the Karaite from a linguistic point of view as the peers present-day representatives of ancient Khazars. Among the reasons why this sect preserved its language for about half a millennia, while the main body of Khazar Jews shed it in favor of Yiddish, of the Yiddish lingua franca, more will have to be said later, right? Because we go more into the Yiddish later. All right. So like in the lingua franca is like you speaking different. Everybody's speaking a different language, but we try to come up with a language to speak amongst the people. That's what I can explain it. Right, because Yiddish, we go get into Yiddish later. All right, so now it's going into more, proof showing about the Poland, man. Right? It says the Polish kingdom adopted from its very beginning under the pious dynasty of Resaluti Western orientation together with Roman Catholicism, but compared with its Western neighbors, it was culturally and economically an underdeveloped country. Hence the policy of attracting immigrants, Germans from the West, Armenians and Khazars Jews from the East, and giving them every possible encouragement for their enterprise, including royal charters detailing their duties and special privileges. In the charter issued by Boleslav the Pious in 1264 and confirmed by Chamister the Great in 1334, two different accounts. Jews were granted the right to maintain their own synagogues, schools, and courts, to hold landed property, and engage in any trade or occupation they chose. So they gave special privileges to the Jews to encourage them to migrate to them, pretty much. They was underdeveloped and lowly. Verse 50, it says, a striking illustration for their privileged condition is given in the papal brief issued in the second half of the 13th century, probably by Pope Clement IV, in address to an unnamed Polish prince. In this document, the Pope lets it be known that the Roman authorities are well aware of the existence of a considerable number of synagogues in several Polish cities, indeed no less than 5 synagogues in one city alone. So this is just more and more proof. You got different sources. Got the Pope saying it. You got different kings saying it, that the Khazars was getting it in Poland, man. All right, they had hella synagogues and things set up, man. All right. It says, we gather from these documents, which are roughly contemporaneous, with the Mongol conquest of Khazaria, that already at that time there must have been considerable numbers of Khazars present in Poland if they had in several towns more than one synagogue. Right, so just proving that before, I mean, we're during the time of the Mongol conquest, the Khazars already had things established in Poland, man. They already had stuff established if they had more than one synagogue, right? So that's how you know the Mongols and all these other people during the Golden Horde taking over that land, it didn't do away with the Khazars because they just migrated, and they've been migrating before that time. That's all it's saying. All right, that's what all this is adding up to. This is some deep info, man. All right. Then he says, and that they must have been fairly prosperous to build them so stately. This led us to the question of the approximate size and composition of the Khazar immigration into Poland. So, once we figured out they was in there prospering, we got to see how many do we think was there. He says, regarding the numbers involved, we have no reliable information to guide us. We remember that the Arab sources speak of Khazar armies numbering 300,000 men involved in the Muslim Khazar wars. Even if allowance is made for quite wild exaggerations, this would indicate a total Khazar empire of at least 500,000 souls. Aban Fadlan gave the number of the tents of the Bulgars as 50,000, which would mean a population of 300 to 400,000, i.e., roughly the same order of magnitude of Khazars. On the other hand, the number of Jews in the Polish-Lithuanian kingdom in the 17th century is also estimated by modern historians at 500,000, 5% of the total population. These figures do not fit in too badly with the known facts about the protracted Khazarian migration via the Ukraine to Poland, Lithuania, starting with the destruction of Kharkiv and the rise of the Piast dynasty toward the end of the first millennia, accelerating during the Mongol conquest and being more or less completed in the 15th and 16th century, by which time the steppe had been occupied and the Khazarians had apparently been wiped off the face of the earth. So you can't say they've been wiped off the face of the earth pretty much like they would say, because during this time, during the time of the Mongol conquest, Poland and Lithuanian empire was growing in number. It was rising. Why was they rising? Because all this Khazarian influence, man. Right? So they said they would have apparently been wiped off the face of the map, but that can't be the case. Right? Jump down, it says there is irony hidden in these numbers. According to the article's statistics in the Jewish Encyclopedia, in the 16th century, the total Jewish population of the world amounted to about 1 million. This seems to indicate, as Polaic Truria and others have pointed out, that during the Middle Ages, the majority of those who professed the Judaic faith were Khazars. A substantial part of this majority went to Poland, Lithuania, Hungary, and the Balkans, where they founded that Eastern Jewish community, which in its turn became the dominant majority of world Jewry. That's crazy, man. Just the facts, you just can't get around. It's hilarious, man. All right. I want to get y'all all this, man. Israel got to know this stuff, man. This part was real interesting. I'm gonna read this first. It says, page 152. Polish scholars agree that the oldest settlements were founded by Jewish immigrants from the Khazar state in Russia, while the Jews from southern and western Europe began to arrive and settle only later, and that a certain proportion, at least, of the Jewish population originated from the east, from the Khazar country, and later from the Kievan Russia. Right? It's the little sixth part of this chapter here. Like it says, so much for size, but what do we know of the social structure and composition of the Khazar immigrant community? That's where things get real interesting. So now we gotta see what was the size like. I mean, we can only guess what the size was, but So much for size. Let's see about their actual structure, how they actually ran their communities. It says the first impression one gains is strikingly similar. So, like, it's a striking similarity between certain privileged positions held by Khazar Jews in Hungary and in Poland in those early days. Both the Hungarian and Polish sources refer to Jews employed as mint makers, administrators of a royal revenue, controllers of the salt monopoly, tax collectors, and money lenders, i.e., bankers. We all know them Jews are bankers, man. That's crazy. So the Khazars, they've been had the money. They've been had money since these times, 1200s, 1300s, time after the Mongols, man. And they had these prominent jobs. This parallel suggests a common origin of those two immigrant communities, and as we can trace the origins of the bulk of the Hungarian Jewry to the Magyar Khazar Benedictus, the conclusion seems self-evident. It pretty is self-evident, man. You know, we finna be tearing Amalek up right now, man. Right, they getting destroyed through the spirit, man. Right, and it's one of their own people, man. You know, the scriptures prove who the Israelites are, how the Israelites look. So history, archaeological prove it. So then we start seeing this. It's bad for them, man. It says the early records reflect the part played by immigrant Jews in the two countries' budding economic life. That it was an important part is not surprising since foreign trade and the levying of customs duties have been the Khazars' principal source of income in the past. They had the experience which their new hosts were lacking, and it was only logical that they were called in to advise and participate in the management of the finances of court and nobility. The coins minted in the 12th and 13th centuries with Polish inscriptions and Hebrew lettering are somewhat bizarre relics of these activities. So even the Polish coins had Hebrew lettering and Yiddish lettering in it, right? So they was hired to do manage the finances of countries, man. Poland, the countries in Hungary. All right. That's why the Jews, that's how they gained their wealth. They never lost their wealth. Right? We go get into that, man. All right, let's go keep bringing it out, man. Okay. Page 154 says, however, the transformation of Khazar Jewry into Polish Jewry did not entail any brutal break with the past or loss of identity. It was a gradual, organic process of change, which, as Poleg has convincingly shown, preserves some vital traditions of Khazar communal life in their new country. This was mainly achieved through the emergence of the social structure or way of life found nowhere else in the world. Diaspora, the Jewish small town, in Hebrew, Araya or Ayara, in Yiddish, Shatatel, in Polish, Mia Stepko. All right, so the Khazar Jewry was, went into Polish Jewry with ease. It easily kind of transitioned because they had like small towns to themselves. You just Google Skepto or however the hell you say it. It's Yiddish, man. I don't respect Yiddish. I don't, or what the shell. I don't even know how you begin to say that, man. All right. You gotta pardon me. I'm just Jake, man. I can read Hebrew real good, man. All these crazy damn Yiddish words. But this is a shit tale, all right? Just a home for the Jews, man. All right, fake Jews, Amalek. That's what it is. It's where they all dwell together. Just want to get the visual, and we go bring it down. All right, it says the Shetzel should not be confused with the ghetto, right? Because if you look up the word ghetto, it's basically a place where the Jews reside. right? That's how you know we the Jews. We actually in the real ghetto. That's what this finna go into. That don't get where they was in Poland confused with the Jews. Because like it said here, nowhere else in the world in the diaspora of the Jews was this chateau place. But it was ghettos everywhere. And let's go get down to it. It says the latter consisted of a street or quarter in which Jews were compelled to live within the confines of a Gentile town. It was, from the second half of the 16th century onward, the the universal habitat of Jews everywhere in the Christian and most of the Muslim world. The ghetto was surrounded by walls with gates that were locked at night. It gave rise to claustrophobia and mental inbreeding, but also to a sense of relative security in the times of trouble. As it could not expand in size, the houses were tall and narrow chested, and permanent overcrowding created deplorable sanitary conditions. It took great spiritual strength for people living in such circumstances to keep their self respect. Not all of them did. And that's how you know it's talking about, Jake. We live in the ghetto and we still keep our self respect through the spirit because you got to be a spiritually strong people, like you just said. But hey, man, nobody's spiritually strong like the Israelites, man. That's why I said, but thou art rich. I can't believe I ain't bring that up, man. Right? I should have brought this out at the beginning of the video. Right? Should have been brought this one out. I can't believe I ain't thinking this precept. This is classic. Revelation 2 and 9. It says, I know thou works tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, because we got that spiritual strength, man. Nobody's more spiritually strong than the Israelites, man. And I know the blasphemy, the lie against God, of them which say they are Jews and are not, are the synagogue of Satan. That's what we touching on, the synagogue of Satan right now, man. And they saying they Jews, but they not. We breaking down through the spirit, their history, they Khazars, they migrated into damn Eastern Europe, man. And we getting the proof emphatically, without a doubt, all the proof, all the evidence to show that these people are the Khazars, man, which come from the Caucasus, right? They don't come from Israel. They come from the Volga. They don't come from the Jordan, man. Right? They're from the seed of Esau, Edom, the devil, man. All right. It says the Shetu, on the other hand, was a quite different proposition, a settlement which, as already said, existed only in Poland, Lithuania, and nowhere else in the world. It was a self-contained. Now, Slovakia, now it only was in Poland and Lithuania, whereas most Christian and Muslims worlds, the Jews had to live. They was forced to live in those ghettos. But this was only special, significant to Poland and Lithuania, right? It said it was a self-contained country town with an exclusively or predominantly Jewish population. The Shetu's origin probably backdate to the 13th century and may represent the missing link, as it were, between the market towns of Khazaria and the Jewish settlements in Poland. The economic and social function of these semi-rural, semi-urban agglomerations seems to have been similar in both countries. In Khazaria, as later in Poland, they provided a network of trading posts or market towns which mediated between the needs of the big towns and the countryside. So just like in Khazaria, later on in Poland, they operated the same way, and it's breaking down how they operated these towns, man. So how can they not be from? How can they not be those people, man? Y'all Khazars, man. Y'all doubled. Y'all stole our nationality, man. They had regular fairs at which sheep and cattle, alongside with goods manufactured in the towns and products of the rural cottage industries, were sold and bartered. And they do that now, man. They just to themselves and they barter with the other nations, and they just about getting the money, man. They've been doing that, man. Ain't nothing new under the sun, man. This is heavy stuff, man. It says at the same time they were the centers where artisans plied their crafts, from wheelwrights to blacksmiths, silversmiths, tailors, kosher butchers, millers, bakers, and candlestick makers. They were also letter writers for the illiterate, synagogues for the faithful, inns for travelers, a heder, uh, Hebrew for room, which served as a school. All right. So that's what they got now, man. They had it then. And more importantly, the Khazarians had that kind of vibe, man. So that's how you know these people are the same people. They was doing that when Hitler came through, man. They still do it to this day, right? Just like Jake do everything like Jake was doing. Still transgressing the laws of God. Still want to deal with the other nations. Still want to be coons and bugged up. All the nations, they just do what their forefathers did, man. Some particular trades became. Oh, yeah, it's like, yeah, I gotta get. I like this right here, right? It's page 155. Yeah, I wanted to get this point. It says some particular trades became virtually a Jewish monopoly in Poland. One was dealing in timber, which reminds one that timber was the chief building material and an important expert in Khazaria. Another was transport. So the Khazarians dealt with transport and timber, and then the Jews in Poland had a monopoly on that timber, man. Right? The dense net of shetels, writes Polak made it possible to distribute manufactured goods over the whole country by means of the Serb-built Jewish type of horse car. Only the development of the railway in the second half of the 19th century led to a decline in this trade. So they had a monopoly over trade of timber during the time of slavery, which is why we always let you know that the Amalek, the Jews, they funded the slave trade. They had the money. You see, they had money back then. They had a monopoly on certain things. They handled money. They was bankers, man. They was managing the finances of countries in Eastern Europe, just like they do now, man. These are the same damn people, man. You can't get around that, man. How can you get around it? It's deep, man. If you got a spiritual eye, spiritual ears, you can really understand what's like how deep this is. Right? It's really deep when you understand Amalek, when you understand the scriptures, when you understand how nothing new is under the sun, man. And it's like this is clearly just like this is clearly them. And it hits so hard to this thing, like, damn, the Lord just he go hard, man. How he do his stuff. So they gave the timber for the slave trade. They funded the slave trade. That's why we always bring that out. They provided the timber, man. All right, and that's how you know it's deep, man. All right, it says page 156. It says, so like, oh yeah, it says now this a specialization in coach building and catering could certainly not have been developed in the closed ghettos of Western Jewry. It unmistakably points to a Khazar origin. Straight up, man, because how can you develop these big old damn trade thing? How can you develop all that if you in a ghetto, a dense ass ghetto, man? The people of the ghettos were sedentary, right? And that basically means you chill, you relax, you laid back. If you Google it now, it'll say like people that play games and watch TV all day, right? And that's how the people of the ghettos now are, man. Right? Hey, Jake was a plain man laying in the tents, man, dwelling in tents. Right? Esau was a man of the field, man. Right? Plus, Jake been beat down so much by this time. It was look, man. They just wanted to chill out, man. All right, they had lost everything centuries before, man. You know, while the Khazars, like other semi-nomadic people, use horse or ox-drawn carts to transport their tents, goods, and cattle, including royal tents the size of a circus fit to accommodate several hundred people. So how can you carry that if you living in a damn dense ass ghetto? Don't make sense, right? Then it says other significantly Jewish occupations were innkeeping, the running of flour mills, and trading in furs, none of them found in the ghettos of Western Europe. That type of stuff wasn't going on in the ghettos, man, in Western Europe, right? It says, such in broad outlines was the structure of the Jewish shtetl in Poland. Some of its features could be found in old market towns in any country. Others show a more significant affinity with what we know, little though it is, about the townships of Khazaria, which were probably the prototypes of the Polish shtetl. So these shetls, they they had seemed like they had an affinity with the Khazarian townships. Although they knew little about them, it's still you can still see the remnants within it, man, through just the history. Right. Here's a point right here. He'll bring it out. It says to these specific features should be added a Pogada style of the oldest surviving wooden shtetl synagogues dating from the 15th to 16th century, which in total, which is totally different from both the native style of architecture and from the building style adopted by Western Jews and replicated later on in the ghettos of Poland. Right, so it's a total different style of building. So that's how you know it's not the same ghetto, not the same people, man. All right. So they never was in the ghettos, man. That was always for Jake, man. All right. It wasn't in Western Europe, man. That was all for Jake, man. The inferior decoration of the oldest shtetl synagogues is also quite different from the style of the Western ghetto, and the walls of the synagogue were covered with Moorish Arabici, Arabicis, which is basically artifacts, and with animal figures characteristic of the Persian influence found in Magyar Khazar artifacts, and in the decorative style brought from Poland by Armenian immigrants. So, I mean, you just can't get around that, right? You just can't get around it. It's looking just like, I mean, it's looking like how the Magyar and Khazar, how they design things, right? Which is when they team, the Khazars teamed up with Hungarians, man. All right, they was in Hungary too, man. So like, I just want to get a picture of the inside of this thing. I put it up on my phone. See if I can get it for y'all. It actually kind of showed it, right? Yeah, here it is. It's the one I saw, right? See the animals, and that's what it's talking about. All right. I love this right here. It says the traditional garb of Polish Jewry is also unmistakably Eastern origin. The typical long silk, the typical long silk kaftan may have been an imitation of the coat worn by the Polish nobility, which itself was copied from the outfit of the Mongols in the Golden Hardy. Fashions travel across political divisions, but we know that kaftans were worn long before the nomads of the steppes. All right, that's this right here, kaftan. Go see if I put men. See that? That's what them damn, you know, that's what a kaftan is. It says the skull cap, the yarmulke, is worn to this day by Orthodox Jews. All right. Oh, Salaki, I'm thinking I'm typing this shit. Damn yarmulke, man. Check that out. Trump, they Trump Gary again. These damn doubles, man. Check that. Looking dumb as hell, man. Niggas Satan, man. All right. But it says worn to this day by Orthodox Jews, by the Uzbeks and other Turkish people in the Soviet Union, man. Now they just bring it out if you look it up. They say the Khazars are Turkish speaking people. So you know, so that basically comes from the Khazars, them wearing the damn yarmulke. That's not in the scriptures, man. The Hebrew, they wore mitres, man. All right, you bring that up. But Exodus 28:4 says, and these are the garments which he shall make: a breastplate and an ephod and a robe and a broidered coat, a mitre and a girdle, and they shall make holy garments for Aaron and thy brother and his sons, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office. All right. So that's the holy garments, man. Not a goddamn yarmulke. Just come from Turkish people and damn the Soviet Union, man. That's silly. Look at that, man. Silly as hell, man. Just look goofy. Why is this the first thing that popped up? There's Satan, man. Right? It says on top of the skull cap, men wore the stremio, an elaborate round hat rimmed with fox fur, which the Khazars copied from the Khazars or Kazakhs, or vice versa. As already mentioned, the trade in fox and sable furs, which had been flourishing in Khazaria, became another viral Jewish monopoly in Poland. Right? So that's just more proof. So the furs was flourishing in damn, just like the wood was flourishing in Khazaria. Same with the furs. Then now you all of a sudden in Poland they doing the same thing. That's how you know they're the same people. See, that's why they murdered this man. He went in too deep. But let's look up this here, the stremio. Right, let's see what this is. All you go to see is some stupid hats that they wear, man. All right, Slovakia. Some stupid hats that the Amalek wear, man. Like they said, it comes directly from the Khazars, man. That's what this is. It's damn foolish thing, man. Jake would never wear that, man. Look like a damn fool, man. These are the people of God, man. That's despicable. That's disgusting. That's detestable, man. That's abominable, man. Just come on. This is a child of God, man. Looking finished, man. That's an embarrassment to the wow. As for women, they wore until the middle of the 19th century a tall white turban, which was an exact copy of the jewellock worn by Kazakh and Turkish women. Right? Again, Turkish women. Right? Let's go touch on one last thing. This Yiddish. All right, we'll touch on the Yiddish language. Right out this book, man. We had to go into this history, man. Had to. All right, it's page 172. It says Yiddish is a curious amalgam of Hebrew, medieval German, Slavic, and other elements written in Hebrew characters. Now that it is dying out, it has become a subject of much academic research in the United States and Israel. But well, until well into the 20th century, it was considered by Western linguists as merely an odd jargon, hardly worth serious study. So they say that's an odd jargon. They ain't even take it seriously, man. And he's supposed to be the people guy. He's supposed to be speaking the language. So that's why you get Shua people, um, which I'll say Yahuwah. Hey, man, that's jargon, man. Right? And that's a Slavic medieval Germany language. Okay. As H. Smith remarked, little attention has been paid to Yiddish by scholars apart from a few articles of periodicals, right? Or periodicals, Salaga. The first really scientific study of the language was Mises' historical grammar published in 1924. So the first serious study was in 1924, man. And you just can't get around it, man. It says at first glance, the prevalence of German loanwords in Yiddish seems to contradict our main thesis on the origins of Eastern Jewry. We shall see presently that the opposite is true, but the argument involves several steps. The first is to inquire what particular kind of regional German dialect went into the Yiddish vocabulary. Skip down here. It says, having disposed of the alleged Western or origin of the dramatic element in Yiddish, Mises went on to show that the dominant influence in it are the so-called East Middle German dialects, which were spoken in Apennine regions of Austria and Bavaria roughly up to the 15th century. In other words, the German component which went in the hybrid Jewish language originated in the eastern regions of Germania, adjacent to the Slavic belt of Eastern Europe. All right. So that's what's going on with that, man. So let's go to page 174. It says how an East Middle German dialect combined with Hebrew and Slavic elements became the common language of Eastern Jewry, and the majority of which we assume to have been of Khazar origin. In attempting to answer this question, several factors have to be taken into consideration. First, the evolution of Yiddish was a long and complex process, which presumably started in the 15th century or even earlier. So that's pretty whack, man. 15th century, 1400s, man, maybe earlier. How can you take that seriously and say that's God's language? It was just roughly invented, man, a few centuries ago, man. Yet it remained for a long time a spoken language, a kind of lingua franca, right? Which is like saying you speak it in different communities, people that speak different languages. We all speak this one language. It was like it wasn't even written down. It's going to explain that though. And appears in print only in the 19th century. Wow, so it just started getting printed in the 19th century. Before that, it had no established grammar, and it was left to the individual to introduce foreign words as he desires. There is no established form of pronunciation or spelling. The chaos in spelling may be illustrated by the rules laid down by the Judaeus Chi Vols Bibli Chi. Right? Write as you speak. Write so both Polish and Lithuanian Jews may understand you, and spell differently words of the same sound which have different significance or signification. It's like that's crazy, man. What is that, man? That, that's a foolish language, man. All right, it says thus Yiddish grew through the centuries by a kind of untrammeled prolification, right? So basically, an uninterrupted growth, avidly absorbing from its social environment such words, phrases, idiomatic expressions as best serve its purpose as a lingua franca. But the culturally and socially dominant element in the environment of medieval Poland were the Germans. They alone among the immigrant populations were economically and intellectually more influential than the Jews. So the Germans, they had more influence. That's why it would come from them, right? So, I mean, that's it with that history. I just want to get into them getting the land of Israel, right? Getting the land of Israel. I'm gonna put it on the screen. All right. How did they even get the land of Israel? Why are they in that land today? Well, first, it's because we got kicked out of the land, right? Babylon at Timbuktu by Rudolph R. Windsor, right? Page 84, it says, in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. Slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves, right? So our land was conquered. That was it. Our land was through. Our land was finished, right? You can read about that in Luke 21, 20 on down, man, 20 to 24, right? But I'm gonna get this precept, right? And it's also in the curses, man. When you read the curses of Deuteronomy, it literally goes into our land being sieged, man, and we getting scattered. It's just all of the Most High. And this Ezekiel 36:5, it says, therefore, thus saith the Lord God, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their heart, with the spiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. So Idumea, right, they appointed the land of God into their possession. Now, who is Idumea? All right. All right, let me just get it out the apocrypha real quick. All right, we're gonna see who Idumea is. All right, it's the book of First Maccabees, chapter 4. I'm gonna start at 60. It says, at that time also they builded up the Mount Sion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down as they done before. And who did it? Who is treading them down at this time? Who was those Gentiles? Right, you had chiefly the Greeks, the so-called white man. Right, other nations joined, but chiefly the so-called white man. Let's see what he called them. It says, and they set a garrison to keep it and fortified Beth Shur to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea. Right, so Idumea is the so-called white man. Right, when you check it out, Idumea is literally just the Greek way of saying Edom. Right, bring that out. Right, the sign is in contact by the dictionary, man. Right. Get the word Idumea, man. Right. So it says they want to protect from Idumea. And this is how you know, look, check it out, Idumea. It says pertaining to Edom, Greek and Roman name for Edom. So Idom, it's the so-called white man, the Greeks, huh? Right? So Esau, Edom is the Idumeans, which is the so-called white man. They're the one who appointed his land to their possession, man. All right, so that's why we not in our land, because we got kicked out of our damn land. And once we actually in the land, it's gonna be peace, man. All right. Before I get that, let's read about this: the British Balfour, right? The Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration was a letter written by British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to Leon Walter Rothschild, a double, in which he expressed the British government's support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. So they wanted to make a Jewish homeland in Palestine. The long-term effects of the Balfour Declaration and the British government's involvement in Palestinian affairs are felt even to today, right? Because it was written in like 1914, but it didn't go through till later. I want to show that. The area's instability led Britain to delay making a decision on Palestine's future, but in the aftermath of World War II and the terrors of the Holocaust, growing international support for Zionism led to the official declaration in 1948 of the nation of Israel. So they didn't even get into the land until 1948, man. Where was they at before then, man? It was goddamn in Eastern Europe, man. The Khazars. Straight up, man. You just can't get around it. All right, put it on the screen actually. All right, because once we in the land, it's gonna be no more war, man. All right, let me get this quote, man. It's from the President Gamal Abdel Nasser. He said the Europeans claiming to be Jews are nothing more than Hebrew-speaking Gentiles. The late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, stated on television, "You, the Jews, will never be able to live here in peace because you left here black and came back white. You are not. We cannot accept you." That was in 1952, man. Just about 6 years after they, said that Balfour, right? So that's why they always go to war, man. But when we in the land, it ain't gonna be no more war. Thus said the Lord, man. All right, it's Isaiah 2:2. It says, "And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall come and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out Mount Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem." It ain't happening right now, man. All right. "And he shall judge among the nations and seek and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." So it's gonna be forever peace in the land, man. All right. If you look at Israel right now, it's a damn desert, man. That's how we also know we ain't in the land. Check this out. It's a damn desert, man. Right? Wasteland, right? It's a desolation. And they got damn pink city, homosexuals running around, man. And he said the law will be flowing out of there, man. So I just want to get this last precept, right? Show you once Israel get back in power, that's how you know they ain't the real people of the land, right? Ezekiel 36 and 33, right? It says, "Thus saith the Lord God, in the day that I shall have cleansed you from all your iniquities, I will cause you to dwell in the cities, and the waste shall be built, and the desolate land shall be tilled, whereas it lay desolate in the sight of all that passed by. And they shall say, This land that was desolate is become like the Garden of Eden, in the waste and desolate room and ruined cities are become fenced and are inhabited. Right, so it's gonna be like the Garden of Eden when the children of Israel get back. That's how you know these ain't the real Israelites. Right, so we went in depth. We exposed Esau, the so-called white man. Revelation 2 and 9, Revelation 3 and 9. They're gonna bow at our feet. They doubles. So-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. We the real people of the Bible. These are imposters, man. The hell with them. They're going into slavery. Death to all nations, man. Lord willing, that was edifying Israel. Shalom.